What's up, everybody, and welcome to Growing Up Gaming, your weekly podcast where we meet a new person of the internet to discuss their childhood with gaming and how it inspired their lives today. My name is Mitch Power. Again, thank you guys so much for returning each and every week to this show. I hope you're subscribing there on iTunes or Google Play, or you're on Stitcher, or you're on TuneIn Radio, or YouTube, and now Spotify. So if you want to listen to me there, I don't know if I get that fraction of a penny that other artists get for their music being played there, but either way, it's not going to matter. A fraction of a penny doesn't matter. I'm just happy you guys are here listening, and thank you guys for your support. This week on the show, we have our guest. His name is Mekel Kasanova. I actually met this man through Delvin Cox. He was nice enough to link us together on Twitter, so that way we can get together and record an episode of the show. Of course, he is the host of the Kasanova Podcast, which is Hawaii's #1 podcast. So I actually have a winner on this show of the #1 podcast in Hawaii. How cool is that? So you get to check out his stories there. If you guys want to be on the show just like he was, go ahead and send me a tweet at MitchPower1116 on Twitter, or at the podcast Twitter page, which is at GUG Podcast on Twitter. Without further ado, let's get things started with Mekel Kasanova. Do you remember what initially got you started playing games? Was it a family member? Was it a friend? Was it some awesome thing you saw in a toy catalog? Like, what was it that got you started?
Okay, so basically what got me started playing games, my earliest gaming memory, I'm going to say, was when I was 3. And yes, I can remember that far back, and I'm 30 now, and that's a hell of a long time ago. But, yeah, my earliest gaming memory, I was 3 years old. My brothers and my dad were sitting around the TV. And they were playing Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest. So that was my first game. And I remember trying to play the game, and they got to the point, I'm not sure if you remember, like, the point where you had to have the crystal and go and kneel at the, I think it's all the way on the left of the map. You got to kneel at the cliff, and then the hurricane comes, picks you up, and takes you somewhere else. Like, my brothers, we didn't have the guide or anything like that, and for whatever reason, I just took the controller, I went, and I just held down. And I was able to make that happen. So they're like, "How did you do that?" I'm like, "I don't."
You were like the wizard.
Buttons.
You were like the wizard before the wizard. You knew where the flute was just by magic,
right? And then, like, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, like, I'm surprised that you were all like cool to play a Castlevania at 3, because I mean, I'm assuming some 3-year-olds might get scared to death of some shit in that game.
No, because what happened was I was all cool with the game up until, like, you know, the game over screen where they give you the password, like that music, that music used to scare the crap out of me. I would run and hide when I would play.
That also would scare people just because, like, back then they didn't have, you know, continue. Sometimes that was like game over meant you restart from the beginning, and that would scare the shit out of some people. Right? No. They'd have nightmares of, like, game over music just because that means they have to restart everything from scratch.
Oh, man, it was insane. And then from there, like, the other game I would play constantly, it was either Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest, or it was Double Dragon NES. I love that game. I still, to this day, I play Double Dragon 1 every single month, start to finish. It's crazy.
Well, I mean, also, too, I mean, it's funny because you say that now, and, like, a lot of games back then also weren't very long.
Yeah.
They really weren't. So, I mean, it's crazy because, like, there was a point in time when, like, games were really short. Then games got overly long. Like, they just, for unnecessary reasons, were 90 or to 100 hours. Now we're just depends on the game you want to play. But, yeah, I mean, how long does it take to beat that game?
Like, Double Dragon 1, start to finish, depending on if you do the cheat in the second level, you can probably beat it within about, let's say 18 to 20 minutes. Give
right.
Or take. Yeah.
It's not long at all. I mean, especially, well, the side-scrolling beat-em-ups, those are the worst because I've shared the story before, but the biggest disappointment my mom ever had probably buying a video game, which might be why she never bought many of them for me, is she, like, probably killed a person to go get Power Rangers for Genesis. Like, she probably murdered... Well, again, that was back when Power Rangers, like... Do you remember, like, Power Rangers Halloween costumes? If you weren't there when they opened the box to get one, you were the fucking Blue Ranger, which nobody wanted to be.
Yeah.
And it just sucked. You know what I mean? Like, they were so popular. So, like, I remember it came out for Genesis, and it was probably overly expensive because it was Power Rangers. It was probably like $80 or $90 for unnecessary reasons. Yeah. And it was just a side-scrolling beat 'em up you can beat in like 30 minutes. And I remember I brought my Genesis to my grandma's house. I opened it. I fucking freaked. I immediately went to the bedroom, played it, and it was over. And I was just like, oh, okay. And it wasn't really much replay value. You know, couldn't really do. I remember walking out of my bedroom saying, I'm done. And my mom looked at me like my mom looked at me like, what do you mean you're done? I'm like, I beat the game. And she's like, are you for real? Right? Like, she got like over, like, what? Are you for real? And I'm like, yeah, I did it. It was cool. And she just like, I bet in her head, she's like, last fucking time I buy that kid a game, that no way, I'm not doing that shit again. So, yeah, after that, I don't remember too many games my mom got me. But yeah, those side-scrolling beat 'em ups, man, like, what can you do? It's not like you can make that a 12-hour game without it getting insanely repetitive. Like,
yeah.
Those games are warranted, like, maybe a 2 to 3 hours max. Like, I don't think you can make that game. Well, I mean, what are you going to do, right? You can't, like, some games get boring after 10 hours, like, just depending on the type of game it is. And you're talking a side-scrolling beat-em-up where you hit people with items sometimes, or you get health, or you kick or punch. It's going to get repetitive real fast. So that makes sense. Now you live in Hawaii. Did you live in Hawaii, like, growing up your entire life?
No, actually, I'm originally from Western Samoa. I was born and raised there, lived there up until I was 7. We moved to Memphis, Tennessee, where my dad is from, when he got stationed there. And so from the ages of 7 up until I moved here when I was like 15, 16. That's how that was. So,
I mean, yeah, because the big thing one of the things I really enjoy is I really enjoy talking to people who have grown up in different areas, but also areas like, for example, like that just, I know how it was for video games in the United States growing up, and I know Hawaii and Memphis and all that in the United States, but I mean, like, in some places you go to, video games just aren't as accessible, or just many people just don't give a shit about them. You know what I mean? Like,
yep.
Just depending on where you're at. But I mean, at least, like, so when you were early growing up, though, like, were they accessible, or were they relevant, or were people just like,
I mean, in Samoa, basically, they really weren't as accessible because everything, I mean, if you think it's, like, if you come to Hawaii, if you look at, like, the prices of things, you're going to get an inflation. But anything from Samoa, oh, my God, the inflation's insane. So if a game is, like, $80, typically, like, most of the games were back in the day. So you're looking at paying, like, $150, $160 for one game. It was insane. So, and then we had, like, the local mom and pop shops. We had a lot of import games from Japan, because Japan and Samoa is probably, like, a 4 or 5 hour flight.
I was going to say, that's way closer. Probably way more options there.
Yeah.
Right.
So a lot of games we had weren't really translated, but most of the games were, if you were an American, it was just, the inflation was insane. But when we moved to Memphis, it wasn't as bad, but my mom was like, yeah, we're not buying games, because I had a similar situation like you, where one of the games my mom got, I think it was Mega Man X. She bought it for me when that first came out, and I beat it in one sitting. She's like, what?
Yeah, we're done. We're not doing this shit again. Like, video games are over. Like, it just sucks because, like I said, I mean, also parents don't understand. I mean, at that time, I mean, I'm not going to say parents didn't understand games. I mean, obviously there was parents out there. Like, I talked to people whose parents were gamers before they were born, and then, you know, they just fell out of it as they got older. Mm-hmm. But, like, yeah, I mean, they don't realize, like, you can play it again, but, you know, like, again, especially parents, man, if they buy you some shit, it better last forever. Like, especially when you don't have all the money to throw around. Like,
yeah,
those nice jeans I bought you, they better fucking last you until you cannot squeeze your legs into them anymore. And then you go out and get grass stains on them, and your mom might flip a desk. She'd be like, "What did you just sell me? Like, you got grass stains on your good jeans?" You know, so like, yeah, when you had really, yeah, like, especially with video games and how, especially with like how much they were back then, and how games just cost like varied amounts for unknown reasons. Like this game was $85. Why is that one $85 and the next one $70 or $60 or $50? Yeah, at least they came to a sorta standard now. Yeah, sorta. I mean, now they have your deluxe edition, gold edition, platinum edition. Now you have like 9 versions of the game now, but like for the most part, $60 is still your base for everything.
Hey, you remember that game Evolve that came out back in like 2015 from Turtle Rock Studios? They did it the worst.
Yeah.
That game cost what, $250? You want everything?
Something, yeah.
Oh my God, no.
That was actually the first game digitally that I bought and regretted immediately.
Yeah.
And then Microsoft was nice enough to refund it for me. They actually refunded. That was like back in the day before they actually had a digital refund policy where they were just straight like, you get one fuck up a year. Like if you screw up one time, we'll do it. But yeah, like I bought Evolve and it was just a broken disaster. And I was so bummed because I'm like, dude, Left 4 Dead's amazing. How do you guys screw this up? How do you guys, cause like nobody wanted to be anybody besides the monster. If you got stuck in a role, nobody gave a fuck. They just did what they wanted to do. And I'm like, no, this is a team. This is a team game, and nobody's talking. We can't fucking do this. And I was like the only guy. I was the only person of my friends that bought it. So it wasn't like, hey Bryant, hey Brandon, hop in this game. They're like, no one bought that, Mitch, except for you for some reason. So yeah, that was the only again. And I immediately I got on the messages with them on chat. I was like, I just told them it's a nightmare. It's broken. It doesn't work. And they were like, cool, we'll refund it. And I was like, thank God. Thank God. And then they turned into like a free-to-play model. And just, I'm like, can you guys just go make Left 4 Dead 3, make everybody happy? Like, just do. Again, it's funny because, why am I blanking on the name? The people who do Borderlands, Gearbox. They did the same shit. It's like, you made Borderlands 1, it was amazing. You made Borderlands 2, it was amazing. And then you make not Borderlands. Like, what's your problem? Why would you do this? And then they're like, sorry, we fucked up. We'll make Borderlands 3. And they're like, hey, everybody's happy again. So it's just, I know it sounds bad because people don't want sequels. People want new games. But if a game's really good and people still care about it, shut up and keep making it. Sorry. Like, I get it. You want to try new things. Like, make enough money to have that second studio make that other shit if you want. But like, keep your shit. Like, dude, how many sequels were there of games back then? Like,
yeah, it's true.
How many Mega Mans were there?
Right?
How many Castlevanias were there? Like, how many times did like how many different versions of Street Fighter 2 came out? Like, come on, dude. Like, they knew they weren't fucking up, man. They were like, this is making money. We're just gonna keep doing this. Like, why would you tell us not to make money? Why would you do that?
See, and this is why, like, you know, when I hear people, because I play a lot of Street Fighter, I play it competitively, and I hear a lot of people complain, like, oh my God, I gotta pay for another season pass. Oh, $30 is so much. I'm like, you wouldn't last back in the 90s when you had Street Fighter 2, then you had Champion Edition, Turbo, Hyper Fighting.
Turbo. Yeah, just. And they were 90 a piece. Like, and that was your $90 game. They didn't give a fuck. They didn't care if you bought 4 versions before it. They're like, new one's 90.
Yep.
And you'll pay for it again. And you'll like it. And again, the internet wasn't around for people to bitch. So, I mean, they just kept doing it. Now the internet exists because that's a problem. Like, now the internet's around where everybody who thinks they can have an opinion has one.
I don't know if you're like me, but like I've gotten to this point now, like even though I review games and whatnot, I really have to disconnect from like social media because I get so sick of it. It makes me not want a game.
Right.
Like constantly hearing people just complain. They find everything to be unhappy about. I'm like, do you even enjoy gaming as a hobby? I don't think a lot of people do.
Yeah. I mean, I get to, well, I'm not like that with gaming. I'm more like that with everything else on social media. So like on Facebook, I literally started on and follow like everyone.
Yeah, me too.
I was like, I'll still be friends with you so you don't think I'm a dick and unfriended you, right? But I'm going to unfollow you hard because I cannot see the shit you post on a daily basis. But no, I do that. Like with gaming, I will say though, for the most part, the people I follow, like I have Facebook, which is more family, friends, like that type of stuff. And then I have Twitter, which is 99% just gaming people. And for the most part, I follow people that are pretty positive about stuff. Like, if you shit on everything, I can't see it. Like, you're right, though. Like, why get mad? Are we really going to get mad at video games? Like, video games are the reason why we're going to get angry right now. There's a lot of other shit to get angry about. Like, hey, I'm up breathing. I have a nice house. I have a nice family. I have, you know, I'm fortunate. That's all I have to say. I'm not going to let the fact that fucking Spider-Man doesn't have puddles in it piss me off. Like, sorry.
Oh my god.
For real, like, there's other shit to be angry about. Like, kids are starving in Africa, and you're fucking upset that the resolution of Red Dead isn't native 4K on your PS4 Pro. Go to hell. Like, that's what you have to complain about, people. This is what we're talking about, right? No, not the fact that there's starving people somewhere in the world. You want to be pissed that your PS4 Pro can't do native 4K. Shut up. Like, just, hey, you know what? I don't think people complained about games back then as much. But again, there wasn't the internet. So, I mean, you had the games that you would talk to your buddies about and stuff. But, I mean, there wasn't the everybody mob mentality, get on this game because it sucks. Like, nobody really did that. I mean, also, too, it's funny because I don't think there was those console wars back then. But, of course, you know, I'm sure there were. But I don't think there was a console wars when I was around because most of my buddies had the same console I did. So they didn't shit on me. You know, it's not like, oh, you have that? Oh, what's wrong with it? I never once said that to a kid. Ever.
Yeah, you know, and it's like when I see that nowadays, like I see a lot of people like, oh, if you got Xbox, you don't have any games. I'm like, really? I have a shit ton of games to play on the Xbox. I don't know what you're talking about. Right. And I don't understand that logic where it's like if you have Xbox, you're inferior, or you're like, some people take it so far to make it personal and be like, oh, you're stupid if you have Xbox or you have a low IQ. And I'm like, it's a fucking game console.
Right.
Like, are we really taking it to that extent? I really don't understand.
It's why just people want to just validate the purchase they made, and if they feel they made a wrong choice, they don't want to admit it, which I've gotten over a very long time ago. Like, hey, if I bought a bad game, I fucked up. Like, I made a bet. I bought Evolve, and no one else did, and that should have been a sign, but I bought it. Like, I fucked up. Like, I bought a game that no one else was excited about. So, again, sometimes that works, but then sometimes it doesn't. But again, like, it's just if people think they made a wrong choice, or they just don't want to admit anything they have is bad, like, look at yourself and just say, hey, I feel in order to fully enjoy gaming overall, if you don't have all three, you're doing yourself a disservice. I'm not saying you have to defend one or the other, but you can't tell me, like, if you only own an Xbox, you're missing God of War and Spider-Man and Mario Odyssey and Breath of the Wild and all these other games. So you can't just say, fuck those other games, those are trash. Like, they're amazing games. You just aren't open-minded enough to play them. Same thing, like, when people go with the inverse with Xbox, I'm like, you don't see, like, Gears is really good, Sunset Overdrive is really good, and by the way, you could play $10 a month for Game Pass and have fucking 100 games. Right? Are you out of your mind? Like, you're telling me for $10 a month, you don't want PlayStation to have the same thing? Like, you're telling me you could, now at this point in time, you could literally own an Xbox, pay them $10 a month, and have so many games to play. But again, people just dismiss it. And I mean, some of those games, by the way, are games that are on PlayStation, like Fallout 4, Doom. Like, Doom is on there. You can go pay $20 for Doom, or you could pay $10 a month and have Doom and 99 other games. Shut up, people. Like, just stop. And then again, I'm sorry, Breath of the Wild and Odyssey, such good games. Like, they're really good games. So, if, like, I don't get the whole console wars thing. I personally, when I was younger, I was just like, I had a Genesis. So, looking back, I was a moron because I had a Genesis. I'm willing to admit that. I was completely stupid. I fucking chose Genesis because here's the argument I say. When the Sega Genesis Classic got announced, who fucking cared? When the Super Nintendo Classic got announced, everyone lost their mind. There's your like way to tell what games were actually good in that console generation. Obviously, Genesis had Sonic, which was fun for 2 hours, and then not a whole lot more than that. And Super Nintendo has 5 of the top 10 games ever made on that console. You know what I mean? Like, people love that thing to death. But when I heard somebody else had a Super Nintendo, I didn't go, ugh. I went, oh, dude, you have a Super? That's cool. Can I come over and play, like, Mario? Like, can I play something else? So, but with you, like, I mean, you had a Nintendo. Did you have siblings growing up to, like, play games with and things like that?
Yeah, there was a major age gap between me and my siblings. Like, my oldest sibling is, like, 21 years older than me. So the closest...
Lord!
Yeah, like...
They could drink before you were born. Holy
right.
shit!
My nephew is, like, the same... I have a nephew that's the same age as me. He was born around the same time. It's insane.
Wow.
But, yeah, like, I had 2 siblings that were close in age to me, or I guess as close as can be. Like, one's 7 years older than me, and the other one's about 10 years older than me. But
Closer
we would
than
just
21.
Yeah, So like my two brothers, Nick and Sean, like we play games together. Like we had the NES. Eventually we got the Sega Master System, and then as soon as we got the Master System, then in Samoa, that's when we got the Sega Genesis. It came out. I think this is 1990, but the Genesis came out in '89, I believe. So everything in Samoa came out either a year or 2 years later. So it was it infuriated my mother when she found out, it's something else. And then as soon as we got that, then the Super Nintendo came out. And then my dad's like, okay, yeah, let's get the Super Nintendo. My mom was angry about that. And then we were fortunate enough also to have like the PC Engine. So we got that. We had the Japanese version, so we were able to play like Rondo of Blood back when people didn't even know what that was. We had the Japanese version of Double Dragon 2 and PC Engine. So I got to grow up playing basically everything that came out because my dad was a gamer too. So that really helped.
I was going to say that's going to be a big help when you have a parent that's on board, like when you have a parent that actually cares about gaming, or at least just is understanding of gaming, I should say. You know what I mean? Like, as long as they're understanding of gaming and the culture around it and how fun it can be, then it makes, especially when you got to have that inside, you can't just have brothers or sisters because parents override them. Like, you can't just have your brothers and sisters, like, vouch for you and all that stuff. You got to be like, no, man, have a parent on the inside. It'll make it real easy. When dad's vouching for you, that always helps and everything. So then, dude, because my sister was like 2 years younger. My other sister was like 5 years younger. Like, having a big difference like that, dude, like I said, 21 years difference. That person, dude, like I have interviewed people before who had like a big age gap, and they were to a point where they were just like, the kid was on, or their sibling was on such other shit. They were just like, you're a baby. Like, I'm 10 and you're a baby. I can't imagine like 21-year-old difference. So that's pretty nuts. And then, so you got the Super Nintendo, playing all that. I mean, because that's the other thing I look at too, is like certain people were into certain games based off obviously the console they had, right? Yeah. I wasn't into RPGs as much when I was younger because on Genesis, there aren't too many. Like, not saying there's not any, but there's not enough that are like so like famous that people would be like, oh man, you had a Genesis and played this, like on Super, that thing was an RPG machine. But on like Genesis, I had Mortal Kombat with blood. I guess that's cool. I
hate you.
Yeah. See, that was the big thing back then, is like that's where I think that was the only thing you talk shit on, right? Is like, bro, you don't have blood in Mortal Kombat. What? Like, what are you talking about right now? No blood? This is Mortal Kombat. You're ripping people's heads off. What do you mean no blood? This is bullshit. That was the only thing, like, but right there, that's the thing that kids would talk about, not the fact that you owned a Super. It was just like that game was bullshit for not having blood on the Super Nintendo. But
yeah.
So, like, what games were you into? Like, because obviously you played Double Dragon, you played Castlevania. Did you just kind of take those types of games and just go into Super, or did you expand like into different games at that time?
Basically, when we got the Super Nintendo, some of the things I was getting into, of course, everybody had Super Mario Bros. So I was really big into that. Then I got into Super Castlevania 4. Let's see what else. We had basically Mega Man X. Like, we had that. I love that. Street Fighter. My mother reluctantly bought all the different Street Fighters that came out. She wouldn't buy me Mega Man X2 or X3 when they came out. So this is a funny story. Like, when we were in Memphis, when we had moved there, the concept of a video game rental from a place like Blockbuster or Hollywood Video was unheard of because we didn't have that in Samoa. So basically, we would go there, pay like the $7, or I think it eventually got down to like $5.
Right.
For like, at the time, it was like 2 or 3 days.
Like your weekend is basically like, it was a weekend rental all the time.
Yeah. So I would always like rent, X2 and X3, and I constantly rent them. I beat them the same day. I keep beating them over and over and over. I rented them so much I could have bought them. My dad was like, Mary, just buy him these two games. Like the cost of us constantly renting them, we could just buy it. It's like, no, we're just gonna rent them because he's not gonna keep them if we buy them. But yeah, so there's that. I played all the Final Fights. I hated Final Fight 1. I wish one thing we didn't have was the Final Fight CD, the Sega CD, because if we did, I would have had Final Fight CD, which, hate you Sega guys for that because, we got that crappy SNES port. I don't know what they were doing.
Real quick, don't hate Sega CD people. They hate themselves enough. We fucked up on that console too. Dude, I'm telling you, like, the Sega Genesis, they tried to, like, that Optimus Prime Ultimate transformed poor Genesis that looked like it got every hole plugged. Like, here's 7 adapters. That thing probably heated enough to heat a room. Like, it was a disaster, dude. They tried so hard to make it last as long as they could just to say, fuck that thing in 2 years, here's your Saturn. Like...
The funny part is when people make fun of that Polymega that plays all the retro games and it's modular. They're like, oh man, this is the first ever modular console. I'm like, nope. Look at the Genesis. There you go. That's modular.
Yeah, there's like different versions of like, I had the OG Genesis that had like a headphone jack on it and it had like a volume slider.
Right.
Which, okay, like, I guess this is how we're doing it. But then they had that had a different version of, like, the Sega CD, because they had, the side loader, they had the bottom, and then they had the remodel one, which had the like, there was 9 versions of every one of those things. And it's just like, dude, and then each of them had a power brick. Like, each of them had, you couldn't just do like a 3-prong adapter that plugged into all 3 that had one big, no, you had 3 giant blocks, which of course you had to have a power strip for because you can't, you plug in that thing which takes up 2 other spaces. Like, it's just, obviously they were just like, let's just keep making this thing work as long as we can. But yeah, don't be jealous of Final Fight. No. There, I mean, like I said, the Sega CD side of things, there was like a couple good games, but them trying to like say, no, like Sega CD has full motion video and it's the size of a postage stamp. Like, it was like this big on your screen when your screen was like big. It was tiny. And like, also to think that the government freaked out over Night Trap is hysterical, because I don't know if you've seen the game or not.
Yeah.
It's pretty bad, and they're like, this is going to tell people to kill people. Yes, that's exactly what it is. It's full motion video of this awful acted thing. It's going to make people kill people. Like, I'm sorry, there's movies out there that are far worse than Night Trap, but let's freak out because it's interactive. Like, no, don't be jealous of that shit. Don't be jealous. You're good. You chose correctly, because you got a far bigger selection of good games. Again, dude, even if they came out with a Sega Genesis /CD/32X classic, nobody would give a fuck about it still. So it's okay. You chose right. Don't worry about it.
But, I never really got into RPG. Like, my parents would rent RPGs, like, and I know a lot of people will say this is blasphemy to say, but my parents rented Chrono Trigger. My siblings and I didn't give a damn about RPGs at the time. We didn't care about that. We didn't care about Earthbound. We didn't care about Final Fantasy 3, or, well, technically that was 6 that came out on the Super Nintendo, I believe. Mm-hmm. We didn't care about those back then, because it's like, oh, we got to do all this reading. No, we don't want to do that, because like English is not my first language; it's Samoan. So for me, like, even now, if I read, I have to slowly like translate it from Samoan to English, or English to Samoan, because I think in Samoan. But it was something. But until we got the PlayStation, which I think at that point my siblings had moved out and it was just me, we got the original PlayStation. My initial games that my dad and my mom got me were Mega Man X4, because I was still a huge Mega Man fan, Mega Man 8, which I hated, Mega Man Legends, which was mind-blowing at the time. I loved that game. And they also got me Guys and Final Fantasy 7. And after I beat everything else, I started playing Final Fantasy 7, and I'm like, I don't like this game. I got to do all this reading. And then my mother's like, either you play that game or you're not getting anything else. You better beat it, and you better not beat it within an hour.
Yeah. No, that one you weren't going to. Like, no. No. And that's that's what I was saying. Like, you get to certain points in gaming where like games were really short, but then like as soon as like the RPGs hit, I mean, I'm sure like obviously the RPGs on Super Nintendo weren't short games. Like, I get that, right? It's not like those games you were beating in 2 hours, right? But I mean, like, around PlayStation is when like people started noticing like, oh man, how many discs, how big is the game? Oh, it's on 4 discs. Holy shit, man. That's crazy. You know, I mean, that's when it started getting to the point where it was like, if an RPG was only on 1 disc, people were like, that's weak. That game's not that long. And no, but like, then there was games on 3 discs and then 4 discs. And you're like, holy shit, these are ridiculous games. But then that's when they started getting to the point where games were just starting to get big just to say they were big.
Just for the sake of it,
yeah. Just for the sake of it. Just the art, like, oh, it's 4 discs long. Like, you know, and then I felt bad for poor 64 because, like, they got shit on that generation. Like, just, they had their own games and all, but, like, all these third-party people were just like, PlayStation's awesome. And then 64 just kind of dumped on. And then Saturn got far dumped on.
You know what's funny is actually when it came around to the 32, 64-bit era, my parents gave me the choice of getting Saturn, 64, or the PlayStation. And initially, because I wasn't really too high on Sega, I was like, no, we're going to get Nintendo because we're a Nintendo family.
Right.
So I got to 64, and it's like, I have nothing to play. Like, I'm like, I have nothing to play. That's why we eventually got the PlayStation eventually, because I'm like, all my friends are like, oh man, we got all this game, we got this game, this is amazing. Have you played this? Have you played Tomb Raider? And I'm like, I don't have anything like that on the 64.
Yeah. That was a rough time to be a Nintendo fan. Like, and I'm not saying 64 sucked. Don't get me wrong. But I mean, it's just like the games that people were talking about were all on PlayStation. Like, there was just so many. Like Tomb Raider, for example, my great-grandma's boyfriend. Yeah, that's how we'll call it. I remember going to Texas every year, and like they had a PlayStation. Mm-hmm. And I was like, why do you guys have a PlayStation? Like, what is that about? And the only games they had were Tomb Raider because he loved them. He loved like exploring and stuff. And I was like, that should tell you like you tapped into a market where that person would have never bought a video game console. But then Tomb Raider shows up and like they love it. You know what I mean? So that's a big deal that I'm just like, yeah, that's awesome that type of game opened up everybody to more and more games. But dude, on 64, dude, I felt bad for people on 64 at times. But then again, they got the better wrestling games. So, yeah, I'm not going to shit on them either. Dude, like, when I knew a friend had a 64, the first question, I was like, you got No Mercy? Let's go play.
Right?
Let's go play No Mercy. Let's go play. You got WrestleMania 2000? Let's go play that. Like, it was so many games. I was just like, yo, you got this? You got this? Let's go play those. And Mario 64 to me is still, like, pinnacle of like that game was still better than most of the 3D games that were on PlayStation. But yeah, dude, sorry, you had like no RPGs. Like, you had barely any. So, and again, I guess Zelda is, but I don't know, man. So, but then, so again, was your dad still like cool with gaming? Was he still like helping you guys out, like getting you guys the things that you were hoping for and stuff? Or did he ever play games with you?
Yeah, he did. He would play a lot of games. Like, we ended up getting on the 64. We got Castlevania 64, and he would play that with me because there's that one part, the infamous bomb part, where if you get touched, you blow up. Yeah. So he helped me get through that because I got to a point, I said, screw this game, threw the controller and broke it. And my mom's like, he's not getting anything else. He broke that. That controller cost $70.
Yeah.
Yeah, people. Back then, you guys complain about the Elite controller costing $150 and the Switch controller. They were more back then.
Yep. And they were flimsy as shit. They didn't care.
Yeah.
Except for, here's what I'll say though. SNES and Nintendo controllers, you could fucking throw against the wall as hard as you wanted. They were those were solid. Yeah. As soon as that generation ended, like 64 controllers, that analog stick, if you put it down on the couch too hard, that fucking joystick would get loose, and you're just like, no, it's a loose joystick now. It won't fucking go straight. This sucks. But yeah, like, and then the other thing too, I find hysterical. Go pick up an old school PlayStation 1 controller that did not have the rumble in it.
Oh,
it's light. It feels like there's nothing in your hands. It feels like it's just like a baby's toy. You're like, this is weird. Like, it doesn't feel right. And I just remember that was the biggest thing. Like, when I picked up the DualShock for the first time, I was like, this is really heavy. Like, this is way heavier than a normal controller. But it was just because all the other controllers we ever touched ever just didn't have the mechanics for rumble in them. So
yeah.
But then Nintendo wanted you to add that rumble, though.
Yeah.
They wanted you, dude. They were the finessers of add-on accessories from way back in the day, dude. They would finesse the shit out of people. They'd be like, "You want to play Donkey Kong 64? Cool, you have to have this expansion pack. Oh, you want to play Pokemon Stadium and have a good time? Oh, you need this transfer pack. Oh, you want to feel what Rumble is? Buy this adapter." Like, they finessed the shit out of people from a long time ago. Everybody talked about the Wii, and everybody forgot about the 64. Like, everybody forgot about that shit. So that happens. Did you have? I mean, you talked about traveling and stuff. I mean, but the thing is, it sounds like you were in parts of the, like, obviously you were in Samoa, and then you were in Nashville, and then you went to Hawaii. But it sounds like you were there for, like, chunks of time to the point where you were able to get friends and stuff like that. So it's not like you moved around so much.
Nope.
No?
I didn't have friends. No, because, like, when I ended up going to Memphis, like I said, I was 7 at the time, so I didn't want to learn English. And it was so culturally different, especially in the area we moved into. There's a lot of, like, racial tension, especially if you were mixed. I went through that. Especially in that area of, like, Memphis. Like, it was really bad. So I got picked on for, at the time, having light skin, having long hair. Because, most Samoans growing up, we don't cut our hair. We just leave it long.
Right.
So I was picked on for that. And, every time I go out somewhere, I'd get mugged or something just because I looked different. So I got to the point where I didn't want to learn English. I didn't want to go out interacting and socializing with people. So I would just stay at home, play video games, or eventually get to reading. And my mother, she didn't like me just not socializing, and it got to a point where I didn't really care for reading. So then that's kind of why, like, Final Fantasy VII is such a monumental game for me, because that game got me into not only RPGs, but into reading. So I just would get lost in it. And, I didn't have friends growing up. Hell, you could even say I didn't really have friends in college, because what I did was, growing up, before I moved out here to Hawaii, my mother basically took me out of public school because of all the, stuff I got through, the beating and all that. So she homeschooled me, and I ended up testing out of high school at 15. And so I decided to go. I so I want to go to college. And my mother's like, "You want to go to college here?" I'm like, "Hell no! I hate Memphis. I hate Nashville."
No.
So she's like, "Where do you want to go?" I'm like, "I want to go back home to Samoa." And she's like, "Well, it's only a community college, which is only in American Samoa. We don't really have a college in Western Samoa." So she's like, "You can go to Hawaii." So they're like, "Fine. I'll go here." And I went to a Catholic school called Chaminade University, which I hate right now. I fucking hate that school. I learned nothing. And I'm still paying those student loan debts to this day for absolutely nothing. But I went there. It was interesting because I was much younger than most of the people. I was 15 going on 16 when I started. A lot of the people there were like 18, right. 19. 20.
Like normal college students, like age college students, right? So, yeah, slight age gap there.
So, like, I didn't really fit in with them. I couldn't really go out with them because they were so young. I mean, they were so much older than me, and I couldn't get into certain places.
You're right. You couldn't get into an R-rated movie, fucking let alone anything else.
Yeah, so there's that, and then because I wasn't really socializing with anyone around my age. I didn't really know how to socialize with people, so I'd be like, first thing I'd go up to someone like, "Hey, did you play this video game?" And they're like, "Who plays video games? You're too cool for that." So
too cool.
Yeah. Right?
Like, I know so many people that said in college I went nuts and played video games. You know what I mean? Like, how the hell are you gonna say, like, who plays video games? Fucking, what's wrong with you, bro? Like, you're in college. That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to play video games and shit. Like, you're supposed to, like, hang out and obviously do other things besides play video games. But that could have been, that should have been a very easily common thing. Like, yeah, video games.
It really should have been. And then I would get picked on too by like the other Samoans over there. They're like, "How come you speak English like someone from the South?" Oh, because that's where I learned English. I mean, really? Come on now.
Yeah, like sorry, that's where I grew up. That's what happens. You assimilate to the way people sound here.
Yeah. So I mean, I just, even in college, like I just like go to my dorm and just play my video games, and eventually like there was a gamers club that was created, but the only game they really cared about was like Smash. They didn't care about anything else, so I was like, okay, whatever. You know, I was into RPGs, I was into fighters, and just never really found a community. So I was just kind of a loner.
Dang. Like, the thing is though, is I guess also too, depending on the type of game that you're into. I mean, if you're into RPGs, I mean, yeah, you could play alone. You don't have to play with other people. You know what I mean? That's like a game that there's no multiplayer. Now there are, but there wasn't like many multiplayer style RPGs of that caliber and everything. So, yeah, I mean, at least you had games to go to, and you had games that you can enjoy without other people. Like that was the difference for me, is like most of the games I played were the multiplayer games that you would play with other people, just because all my buddies were around. So like a lot of like, especially like the Super Nintendo, obviously I had a Genesis, but like RPGs, I even on PlayStation, like I had Final Fantasy VII, but also a lot of people did. Like it was almost like same thing we were talking before the show, how Smash is kind of like the game, like if the game is available on the system, you should buy it, because you might run into this situation where you want to play Smash and everything. But it was like a staple. Like so many people have Final Fantasy VII if they had a PlayStation. And I remember getting it and playing it. But I remember just like, I was still playing like wrestling games with my friends. I was still like, you know, I was playing Tony Hawk, passing controller back and forth. Like I wasn't really focused on a lot of single player stuff then. Whereas now, as I'm older, it's funny. The internet makes it far easier to play with other people, but I'm busy, they're busy, we have families, we have jobs, and it's to the point where I'm just like, single player stuff for me is cool now, because it's just like, if I got an hour to kill or something, I can just play an hour of something and be cool with it. So that's kind of how it is for me now. But I can imagine for you, I mean, it really just, it sucks, because like literally, like I said, you had like all these things going, right? You had like, you moved to Memphis, and obviously you weren't from there, so people immediately judged you. And then you're so fucking smart that you went to college early, and that was like, you went to college early. That's amazing. Like, that's so awesome that you went to college early, yet it was a detriment to you, because all these people, and then people made fun of like how you talked, and you're like, I'm fucking 15 in college. What are you doing, dude? Like, you weren't here sooner. Like, fuck you, man. Like, you know what I mean? Like, hey, I might talk like this, but I'm 15 and in college. Where were you at 15? Like, get the fuck out of here. It just sucks, because like you had these things going for you that were beneficial. And again, it sucks because like as you become an adult, you're like, obviously you look back at things and like, man, I made dumb decisions, or people were stupid, or you know what. But I mean, dude, man, like, at least you had video games, though, that, you know, still kept you preoccupied, and, you know, video games weren't going to make fun of how you talk, because that's fucking stupid to do anyways. Like, I look at my kids all the time, I'm like, if you ever make fun of somebody for the way they look or talk, I will smack you. Like, I will smack you in public, in front of everybody. Like, you do not ever, you don't get, like, it's stupid now, but I felt bad. Like, there was a couple people when I was younger. I wasn't a bully, but I remember definitely making fun of people back then, which I have since apologized for as an adult. Like, I saw them on Facebook, and I'm like, I was such an asshole to you, and I am so sorry that happened. And I didn't do it because I thought they were going to kill me later in life. I just did it because I'm a nice person. I was just like, I'm really sorry. I feel really bad for how you were treated back then. But again, now look at those people. I don't know. They might be in a worse shape than you are, man. That's what happens. So who knows? But so you go to school, you're playing RPGs. You're not, I mean, and also I think Smash was like the game that I know a lot of people were like, because again, like the 64 became that multiplayer console. Like it literally was the first one that was like 4 players, and I'm sure Nintendo made every fucking person make their game 4 player, even though it shouldn't have been. Like, yeah, they forced 4 players down everybody's throat and stuff. But yeah, I mean, I think that was the game that was there, but, a lot of people like Smash. A lot of people play GoldenEye. I missed out on all that shit. Like, I didn't play Smash or GoldenEye or Perfect Dark because I was a PlayStation person. So, but again, I also make the argument, I don't think they could make a 64 classic because I don't think there's good enough games that they could put on it.
No, I agree with you fully. Like all the people are saying, like, "Oh, we're gonna get the 64 Classic. It's gonna be amazing." I'm like, what games are gonna be on it? Like, I mean, lifetime games on the 64. There aren't many. The ones, if they didn't come from Nintendo or they didn't come from THQ, they weren't that good.
Yeah, the problem is like majority of the games that were popular on 64 are a licensed nightmare now. Like all the wrestling games are not happening. Period.
Nope.
Like those are done.
You're not getting Perfect Dark.
You're not getting Perfect Dark. You're not getting Banjo. Any of the rare stuff. Donkey Kong 64. Well, I don't know how that. See, again, that's a licensed nightmare. Rare made it. Donkey Kong's a license owned by Nintendo, but Rare made it. So it's like, figure that shit out. Turok, God knows who owns those licenses. So the only games you like can for sure get are Nintendo games. And how many good games are Nintendo games that are worth it? You know what I mean? Unless you put every Mario Party on there. And, you know, Star Fox, which, by the way, Star Fox is trash. I don't care if you like Star Fox. Star Fox is fucking trash. It's not a good game, people. You guys have been lied to forever. F-Zero is also not a good game, people. Sorry. It's not.
No, it's not.
It's not. Falcon and Smash, or, you know, Captain Falcon, that's cool. No. Like, F-Zero.
You can get 1080 snowboarding.
Sure. Sure. Wave Race 64. That's what you'll fucking get. Yeah. It sucks because I've seen like people show images online that look like a legit N64 Classic, and I'm like, please just don't be real. You know what's funny? Even the PlayStation Classic, I don't think it's that good. I really don't. Like, it's not that good. It's got some okay stuff in there, but then like some of the games that are on the Japanese version of the Classic, I was like, I wish those were on the US version. Like, they had Parasite Eve on the Japanese PlayStation Classic, and I was like, you guys fucked up not putting that one on this. Like, really? Like, all right. I remember like that final, when they showed the final list of games, I was just like, I'm good. Like, I don't really, I haven't bought any of the other classics, but I just thought that would be the one that would get, especially if like all the good RPGs that are on that machine. Yeah. Like the Super Nintendo Classic is gold, dude. Like, it's really good. It's really fucking good. Like, there's so many good games on there. And they did such a good job with that. And then, like, PlayStation Classic could have done better. And all of the licenses would have not been hard, because Sony still has a majority of the relationship with all those people to make it happen. And when I saw the list, I was just like, all right, I guess. Also, it's not coming with DualShocks.
So how are you going to play Siphon Filter?
You messed up, guys. Like, yeah. And again, Sony, again, they'll just say, you're an Xbox. You just don't like Sony. No, I was really hoping that would be cool, but nah, I'm good.
If they really were going to go with the $100 price tag, they needed to drop at least 40 games. You know, they need to come with it, because they could have easily blown the SNES Classic out of the water. They should have had, you know, Siphon Filter 1 through 3. They should have had Xenogears. They should have had Mega Man X4, because that was a big popular title for them. They should have had Legends 1 and 2. They should have had not only Metal Gear Solid VR missions, but there's another game that came out. They should have had Symphony of the Night. They should have had that on there,
right? Which
is not. Some of the Breath of Fire games, which were monumental, should have had Suikoden. You know, if they're gonna, the PS1 was an RPG monster. Right. And it's a shame they don't have that. They could have had another fighting game like Bloody Roar. Why Battle Arena Toshinden?
Exactly. I mean, like,
who
also
remembers that?
Also, too, like, they chose some games of like the genre that I just don't get. So like, I'm looking at the list now because I couldn't remember it. So I mean, some of the games they chose right. Intelligent Cube, like, that's cool. They got that on there. But then, and they have Resident Evil 1, which is a big staple. They have Siphon Filter, sure. They chose Twisted Metal 1.
Why not 3?
2 or 3, which 2 or 3 were far better. You have Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six, which, real quick, if you go play an old school shooter, like, they're just not as good. They're just not. Like, they just don't play as well. No. And I get you have to have, like, a racing game, and you have to have a puzzle game, and I get all these things. Cool Borders 2. Okay. Destruction Derby. Yeah, because that's a game when people go, man, you know what I think about PlayStation? I think Destruction Derby. Like, that's the shit you chose. And it's $100, and it doesn't even come with a DualShock. And Like, yeah, and no Symphony of the Night. Like, and Grand Theft Auto 1. Who the fuck cared about 1? No one cared about Grand Theft Auto till 3. Sorry. No, you could say, like, you could try to be that hipster and be like, I liked Grand Theft Auto before it was 3. Shut up. No one did. No one thought it was amazing until 3 came out. So, it's sad. And Rayman 1. Okay. All right, guys. Here we go. You couldn't even put a Crash game on there. Crash Bandicoot was your mascot for years, and you don't have a Crash game on there. All right, people. That's how we're doing things. All right. And yeah, I saw, and I'm imagining a lot of people's excitement for that thing just went like right after that.
Immediately.
Yeah. Like I'm betting a lot of people just went, what the fuck? Like, why does that happen? Like, it's okay. Again, if you're excited about it, cool. Good for you guys. You guys are excited about it. I'm personally good though. You know what I mean? I'm okay. But also too, I look back as an Xbox fan. The first Xbox, not that. I mean, some sure, not enough for a classic console. Like, yeah. I don't think there's enough for a classic console. So, I mean, it's okay. Everybody, if you're excited about the PlayStation Classic, I'm happy for you. I don't know many of you, but I'm happy for you. That's all.
I think Sega, if Sega did it right, they could easily make 2 classic consoles that would just be immediate sellers. The Sega Saturn, with some hidden gems translated from some of the Japanese games that we never got.
Right.
That would be amazing. And a Dreamcast Classic. That would work.
Right. And again, I don't think there'd be, majority of those games were their games. You know what I mean? It's not like they were third-party licensed games or anything. So, you know, I'm assuming if they do a PS2 Classic, which they probably could, hopefully they would do a better job. But yeah, dude, like,
if they screw up a PlayStation 2 Classic,
we thought a PlayStation 1 Classic could be better, and look what happened. It happens, man. Sometimes people are stupid. So, after that, after PlayStation and everything, did you ever have a period of time where you ever fell out of gaming, or were you kind of like into games? Obviously, I understand, like, with friends not being as around and such and things like that. Did you pretty much stick with gaming the entire time? Yeah,
that was basically my go-to. The only type of gaming I never really got into would probably be handheld gaming. Right. I didn't really get into handheld gaming until the DS, PSP era.
Right.
Because I know a lot of people are crazy about Pokemon. I didn't care about Pokemon because I'm like, who am I going to play with?
Yeah, again, like, that's a game that warrants people around you to play and enjoy it with. Like, again, that's why I was telling you earlier, Overcooked. It's a fantastic game. If I played that game by myself, I probably wouldn't like it. But playing with other people made it better. Pokemon by yourself is sad. That's sad as shit. You can't trade with nobody. I mean, now the internet exists, so sure. But I mean, like, that game thrived around social interaction with others. And, yeah, I get it completely. But yeah, you chose a good time to get in handheld gaming because that era was fucking awesome. Like, DS, PSP, even though a lot of people bought a PSP and used it to emulate old games, I don't care. Like, and Sony needs to shut up and just admit, like, the PSP sales were what they were because of how you could emulate it. Like, yeah. I know people that bought that thing and didn't buy a single game for it and took it home and homebrewed it and just played Mario 3 on it and Mario World on it. And that's all they did.
Dude, what I used to do, because I worked for Blockbuster around the time the emulation was really popular with PSP. So basically, I would go and use my discount, my employee, because you could rent the games as an employee.
Right.
So I'd go and I'd rent it. I popped the card in there. I'd plug it in my PSP into my computer, rip the game, and then return it. I would just sit and do that constantly. My boss is like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm just checking to make sure everything plays perfectly." They're like, why do you have your computer there? I'm checking to make sure it plays. Okay, this is a process. Just trust me on it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, dude. Like, they, it's funny because, like, then the Vita, they overdid it with piracy shit, and then nobody fucking bought it. Go figure. Like, I'm sorry if it was easily hackable. It sounds really bad, but, like, example, Fire Sticks.
Yeah.
Real quick, Amazon could probably do some stuff to make it less accessible, but guess what? Once you buy it, I don't think they give a fuck what you do with it. They're just like,
no.
You guys do what you want. We're just developing a hardware, and you guys can, however, do whatever. And dude, they sell A million of them. Millions of them all
Yep.
the time. And guess what? Amazon doesn't give a shit because they just have to legally tell you we don't encourage it, but we can't tell you not to do it. That's all they have to say. And like so many people bought a PSP for that factor. And I get it, like the hardware doesn't make as much as the software does. Software is where companies make their money. I get it. But if you're going to charge me $100 for a 1 gig memory card, that's what you fucking get. Like, I'm sorry. That's what you deserve. Like, you make those memory cards proprietary. But then, yeah, with the Vita, they went way hard into it the other way. Like, proprietary plug, proprietary memory card, proprietary game, like just, and then nobody bought it. That's what happens. So,
and if they didn't do the proprietary media for like the cards and everything, they could have done something with it. The Vita should have been a success.
It is, as far as a hardware standpoint, it is actually good. Like, it's not amazing. Like, as far as technically the games that can run it, like some of the indie games that play on it play fucking perfect. Like, they play just as good as they do on the other consoles. Like, they're fine. But yeah, when you just start making it so proprietary and then the memory card's so egregious and it's just, Nintendo at least got smart with the memory card thing. They're like, no, just go buy a micro SD card. The shit's already proven. Like, we're not going to force you to pay twice as much or 3 times as much for a card the same size that's SD. Like, they got it right. But yeah, the PSP era though, dude, I used to work at Game Crazy. Like, yeah, the Hollywood Video Game Crazy. I used to work there, and so many people, because again, as a person trying to sell the shit, you'd be like, hey, you want a case? You want a screen protector? You want a game? No, I want that PSP and that's it. I'm like, all right, I know exactly what you're doing. Or people would come and go, I want that PSP and that 16 gig memory card. I'm like, I know really what you're doing right now. Okay, here you go. You don't want a game? No, I'm good. I don't want a game. I'm like, all right, cool. And again, at the time, I didn't give a shit because we were selling them, but that's what happened. So did you become a PlayStation kid then? Did you just kind of stick with PlayStation going forward from that?
No, actually, during the PS2 era, I had everything. The first console I got that generation was actually the GameCube, and the first game I got was Smash Brothers because I liked Smash Brothers on the 64. I thought it was a fun party game. Mm-hmm. I liked it on the GameCube because I thought, and this is still my opinion of it, it's a good party game.
Yeah.
But then, after a while, I didn't have another game for it, and then ultimately I ended up, the second console I got the generation was the Xbox, the original one, and I really liked it. I got the bundle with Sega GT and Jet Set Radio Future, mm-hmm. And I got really big into racing games around that point. I got that, and then I started playing Ninja Gaiden, and I remember everyone talking about how hard Ninja Gaiden was. And I'm like, did you ever play any of the NES games back in the day? That's hard. That's NES hard. Come on.
No, it's hard. The only time I've ever broken a controller from a game was Ninja Gaiden. That's the only time.
Really?
Yeah, no. There's
Master
times.
Ninja?
Yeah, like that's like there's games that I get angry at. And again, as I've gotten older, I'm like, it's a fucking video game. Why am I getting angry? But like, there are times where I'm just like, God damn it, that sucks. And then Alma shows up from Ninja Gaiden on the Xbox, and that bitch ruined a controller because I was fighting her, and I was fighting her over and over and over, and I got her down to like 1 hit left. I'm like, yes, 1 hit. And then she pulls some next level shit I've never seen her do one time in the 80 times I fought her before, kills me, and my fucking Xbox controller went across my apartment, and I'm like, I'm done. And then that next day I walked into work and I was like, I need an Xbox controller. They're like, what? I'm like, Ninja Gaiden, that's what. And they're like, all right, here you go. Here's another one. So, and then the worst part is, and I hate this, the very next day I beat her, like right away, like 2 times. I was like, it happens for me. That tends to happen. I get I get stuck on a part. And I think in my head, I'm like, fuck this, this sucks. Why am I bad? And then like, the next time I go and play it, I beat it usually right away. I'm like, oh, okay. I guess I just wasn't. I guess I was just like playing too much or something. I don't know. But yeah, no, like I said, I mean, that's the only game that I broke a controller on. But so were you at that time though when Xbox came out? Did you go online and start going crazy, like playing games online with other people or anything?
Nope.
Still we just didn't, by yourself?
It's funny because like during that period, we actually didn't have internet. We didn't have we didn't get a computer until like probably a year before I went to college. Like, yeah, I didn't have any internet. I'd never played online. I know a lot of people were always hyped about that, like in the magazines I'd read, like EGM and whatnot.
Right.
People were like, oh, online gaming, this is awesome. I'm like, yeah, I don't have internet. And most of the people where I lived in Memphis, like, if you were going to use the internet, you were going to like the library to do so.
Right.
Like,
You were researching papers. You weren't using it for fun. You were actually like using it for information purposes.
yeah, so like, I just played by myself, and then I think the last console I got was the PlayStation 2 of that generation around 2003, 2004. And then when it came to me going to college later on that year, and then when the Xbox came out, the Xbox 360 came out, and people were all really into online gaming, it just never did anything to me because I never thought of the internet and online gaming like that. I'm like, oh, if I want to play with people, I go to an arcade.
Right.
That was my logic. I didn't really get into online gaming full on until like the middle of last generation, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was a big explosion in gaming just because internet was way more accessible and everything. So, like,
yeah.
I mean, I remember getting internet in my apartment for my Xbox specifically and not having a computer. I was like, I didn't have a computer. When I first got my apartment with my girlfriend at the time, now wife, I literally got high-speed internet just for Xbox Live. And I remember the dude showing up and going, "Where's your computer?" I'm like, "I don't have one." And he's like, he kind of looked at me like, "What are we doing then?" I'm like, "Oh, it's for that." And I remember he looked like I showed him some fucking ancient technology he's never seen in his life. He's like, okay. And then he had to like call people to figure out how to fucking test it to make sure it worked. Like, it was like he just never saw somebody apparently who just got internet for their Xbox. But that was like the reason. That's honestly probably still the reason why I love Xbox so much, is because like that was my big dude. Halo 2 online was fucking incredible. Like at that time, it was doing shit that Nintendo still can't do online right now, which is fucking sad. But like, they were doing so much shit then, and I'm just like, in my head, I'm like, I love my Xbox so much. And now that's kind of like I said, I went to 360. I have one. My One X is like my primary console, but like just all the memories I have online. And then, yeah, when you were saying that, when 360 and PS3 hit, like that thing, internet was way more relevant. And then, of course, Microsoft was cool and gave everybody a headset so they can yell awful things to each other on the internet. But no, dude, like that was huge into it. But so, man, you just didn't give a shit about, like, you didn't have your brand loyalty, really, besides Nintendo to Super Nintendo. You went PlayStation, Xbox, GameCube, like, you just went all over the place.
Yeah. And still to this day, I'm the same way. Like, I have an Xbox One X, I have a PS4 Pro, I have a Switch, I have my gaming PC. I just, like, I don't really get into the whole... I mean, I'm still, I guess you could say I am loyal to Nintendo because I like their first-party stuff, and I've seen PlayStation at their worst with, like, the beginning of the PS3 era. That was
fucking
raw.
nightmare for them,
my dude. Yeah. And I've seen Xbox at its worst because I was actually working for Microsoft prior to the launch and the reveal of the Xbox One. Like I got to be, because I was working with Microsoft Game Studios up in Redmond, Washington when I was living up there. And it's like what we saw, like what their vision at the time was amazing. But this was also, like, a lot of people think the Xbox is suffering this generation just because of they didn't know what they were doing. They got arrogant. I'm like, no. What really happened, from someone who was part of Microsoft at the time, what happened was there was a shift in management. Satya Nadella came in. He became the new CEO and president. And he is a services first based person. So he killed off a lot. Like, if you look at a lot of things Microsoft had, from the Windows Phone to the fitness watch they had, to a lot of different services, he came in, killed off a lot of stuff. And he would have killed off the Xbox brand because he thought it was stupid. He's like, there's no point in that. So if it wasn't for Phil Spencer, which I got to work with him, amazing guy, him and other guy, I can't think of his name right now, Larry Herb.
Yeah.
If it was not for them, Xbox would be dead.
Yeah.
Because Satya Nadella, he wanted to get rid of it.
Right. I blame Don Matrick. I just blame him.
He was just a fucking idiot too.
That fucking asshole. Like, he just, like, that picture of him on stage smiling, showing the X. Because I remember, like, when the Xbox got revealed, like, I was on board even when they were mentioning the whole, like, quote unquote, always online, doing the checks, like, when they were saying all that at first, I wasn't trying to be an apology. Like, I wasn't just being an Xbox fanboy, like, oh, it's all good. I was just like, this makes sense based off where things are going to go. So I was like, I'm cool with this. I'm fine. The family sharing and, like, sharing games, and, like, I'm like, this is fucking awesome. Let's go. And then the way they explained it, and how half of people were saying one thing and half of people were saying another thing, and then Don Matrick opening his stupid mouth and saying, oh, if you want to play offline, buy a 360. I was like, you are fucking crazy. Like, you cannot say that shit. Just like when they said for PS3 launch, oh, you'll get a second job. Oh, we will? Like, we're going to get a second job to buy your system? Go fuck yourself. Like, that was what people were saying. Like, you can't come out and be that cocky. But the problem is, and again, it's your third console. It's the third console launch. That's your curse. Because PlayStation 1 was amazing. PS2 was even better. 3 just fucking tanked. And then they saw screwed up with 3, and they made 4 better.
Yeah.
First Xbox came out. Good, not great. 360 came out. Blew everybody out of the water. So many new things happening. Awesome. Xbox One, they're like, people will do this. And they just fucking shit the bed again. Now, considering what all happened and where it is now, very happy. Like, I'm so happy I have an Xbox, especially the X. It's fantastic. It looks really great. The services that Microsoft are doing are great. EA Access, Game Pass.
Yep.
Fucking awesome. And, like, I'm completely... Like, I've always been on board with them, and I'm glad to see that, like, they're not just the redheaded stepchild now. They're like, no, like, even though they stumbled out of the gate, they're good now. I'm also glad to see Nintendo get their head out of their ass with the Wii U and go with the Switch. Like, good for you guys. That Wii U was, like, half a Switch. Like, it was their attempt. They were like, here's the thing that you can play games on. And you're like, awesome. And then you go 5 feet away from it and it's disconnecting. And you're like, why? Like, we want something we could take around the house and play. And then they did it. So that's how you do it. So, dude, I'm actually impressed by the Switch. The fact that, like, that thing literally portably can play Zelda and Mario perfectly. Yeah. Like, perfectly. Granted, you're playing on Joy-Cons, which are trash. But, dude, those Joy-Cons are bad. They're real bad. I don't like them. Yeah. The Pro Controller, way better. Joy-Cons, no, not good. So, but now, obviously, like you said, I feel like, just like you, everybody should have everything to experience everything that gaming has to offer. The only thing I lack is the PC gaming. Not saying I don't like it. I just have been a console person basically like my entire life. And I just like sitting on the couch and playing with a controller. That's how I am. The keyboard and mouse thing fucks me up. I know people are like, you're so stupid. Keyboard and mouse are so much better. I get it. That's you. For me, I just like sitting on the couch and having a controller in my hand. I get it. But no, I mean, everybody should experience that. But now, what are your gaming habits like today? So obviously, you're an adult with responsibilities and kids and a wife and all that stuff. So how are your gaming habits like today?
Now I don't so much as play games for fun. I play them mainly because I'm getting a lot of review copies of games. So if NIS America sends me something, or Sega sends me the Yakuza games, or Fist of the North Star, or the what's the most recent thing, the Valkyria Chronicles, I'll be reviewing that, and it just takes up a lot of my time. Most recent game I reviewed was Red Dead Redemption 2. That took up so much time. The games I actually play, I do play for fun. Okay, let me quantify that. I do play some games for fun. I'm a huge fighting game fan. I have a massive fighting stick collection.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's not like I noticed when I was talking to you that you had 2 fight sticks sitting in a chair behind you.
I'm always ready to go. Right. I'll compete in tournaments. Like we have a really big fighting game scene out here in Hawaii, Video Gamers Hawaii, or VGH 808. So we just had our first statewide Soul Calibur 6 tournament this past Thursday. I ranked 13th out of so many people. It was the biggest turnout we've ever had for a tournament. So I play like Soul Calibur, Street Fighter 5. Even though people hate 5, I love 5. So I play that. I play Tekken. The really fighting games or just single player games are just my they're my go-to. If it's short and it can keep my attention, just, because, my job, I work 15 hours a day. So it's hard for me to want to commit to playing a super long game. If I see it, it's super long, like case in point, Red Dead Redemption, when they sent that to me, like, hey, you got to hit this embargo date.
Welcome to a second part-time job, or a second full-time job, I should say. Like work your 15 hours a day, get these 8 hours in as well, figure out sleep sometime else. Like, right. Yeah, it's basically what they told you. Well, they didn't tell you, but they encouraged, like, hey, yeah, by the way, I'm not trying to say Rockstar made them work overtime or anything. I'm not trying to say that shit, because everybody blew up when somebody said somebody had to work overtime at Rockstar. They're not slaves. They were offered it. They did it. Shut up.
Yep.
Sorry, Rockstar was like, hey, we'll pay you this bonus and we'll pay you this. Yeah, it's not like they made them work for free and they held their families a hostage. Shut up, people. I just don't, again, people on the internet freak out like they were forced to work overtime. Were they paid? Did they get paid? Did they offer overtime, and did they get paid accordingly? All right then, because last time I checked, I get an email every day from work asking me to work overtime, and I'm like, I'm good. Like, I'll work my 40 and get the fuck out of here. I'm not working overtime at my job. I'm good. But again, if you're offered it and you get paid, shut up. Everybody offers OT. If you want to work it, cool. If you don't, you don't. Not a big deal, people.
Yeah.
So, again, just trying to say, nobody made him do a review of Grand Theft Auto. Rockstar didn't hold his family hostage. He chose to do it. But again, like, you got, look at now. Video games have brought you to a point where you're doing things that you like and you love, and you're getting to talk about video games and get early copies of games, which is fucking awesome. Like, look at all that stuff. Everybody who made fun of you in college for playing video games, fuck them. They're probably divorced and unhappy people.
They actually, you know what's funny? A lot of them actually are. So it's so funny when I run into people from college. Like, because it's funny how I am on social media. Like, I don't post anything personal. Like, a lot of people don't know I'm married. They don't know I have kids or anything like that. My wife.
Shit, I'm editing it out now. Sorry.
No, that's fine. You can leave it there. But like, a lot of people, they find it, like my wife, she finds it weird. She's like, you don't post any pictures of the girls or, you and I. And I'm like, there's a reason for it. I'm like, I kind of like have my personal life to myself. Like, I don't like putting all that out there,
right?
Because I see a lot of people, especially on Facebook, people put it's bad. It's really bad. So it's like when I run into a lot of people that I haven't seen in like 10 years or so from college since I graduated, I run into them. They're like, "Oh, are you still into that stupid shit you were into when you were in college?" I'm like, I don't know. Are you still a shithead like you were in college?
Sounds like it based off that fucking question and attitude you had about it.
Right?
Sounds like you're still an asshole. Like, yeah, I play video games and you're still an asshole. Nothing's changed. Congratulations.
It is so funny. And then, like, when they find out, like, oh, you're an analyst for the hospital, can you give me a job? Fuck no, I wouldn't work with you.
No, remember when you said video games were trash and I was weird because I talk funny? Go fuck yourself. How about that? That's what you need to do. Just like, that's how you respond to that email, with a picture of a middle finger.
Right?
No, I'm good. So, but again, look what video games brought you.
You should hit them. Usually, I'll hit them with that. Especially if they come to me online, I'll send them that gif of Stone Cold where he's laughing. He's like, "Ha ha."
Yeah, exactly. Hit him with the funny gif. Hit him with the ha. No, I'm good. No, we're not going to do that shit today. If people wanted to check out all the cool things you do on the internet, where would they go?
You can find me on MekelKasanova.com. That's generally the central hub for everything I'm doing. I'm also on YouTube, so youtube.com/Mekel Kasanova. I'm on Twitter, so Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all the same, so /Mekel Kasanova, Kasanova with a K. Also, you can catch me on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, Google Podcasts, Google Play Music. It's a whole mouthful. Yeah, The Kasanova Podcast is Hawaii's #1 podcast. It's insane. You guys are awesome. I'm interviewing a lot of voice actors. I've got Kyle Hebert, the voice of Gohan from Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball Super. He's also the voice of Ryu in Street Fighter. That's going to be really awesome. I've got the exclusive interview with Ruben Langdon and Johnny Young Bosch for Devil May Cry 5 coming around the corner, and many other things. Just stay tuned. It's going to be one heck of a ride.
And of course, if anybody wants to check out any of the cool things he has, I will have links in the show notes for all of the above, so you can check out all of the cool things he does and make him the whole West Side #1 podcast. That's what you gotta do. Because you got Hawaii, the Western United States podcast. Because right now you have definitely gotten the far Western United States podcast #1. So you got that. Just gotta work on Alaska. If you can beat people in Alaska, then you're like the 2 states away from the United States #1 podcast. Just do that. So you can do that next. So thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you for sharing all your stories. I appreciate it.
Yep, anytime, man. I enjoyed it. And everyone, if you're listening, make sure you subscribe to his podcast. This is amazing. I love it. Make sure you subscribe.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. All right. And again, thank you, Mekel, for being on the show. If you guys want to check him out on Twitter, go ahead and follow him at Mekel Kasanova. Of course, feel free to continue to support his podcast, Hawaii's #1 podcast, the Kasanova Podcast. So feel free to check that out and subscribe to that as well. If you guys want to be on the show just like he was, go ahead and send me a tweet at MitchPower1116 on Twitter, or at the podcast Twitter page, which is at GUG Podcast on Twitter. Of course, we have a Facebook group. Go ahead and search up Growing Up Gaming on Facebook. You'll find us there, as well as a YouTube channel, GUG Podcast. Search that up on YouTube. So that way we can just have you check out all the things I do. So that way it looks like I have way more people paying attention to me than I do. Because, my ego I have to support it so much. I'm just kidding. If you guys want to check out any of those things, I really do appreciate it. And again, thank you guys so much for your continued support. Feel free to leave me a review on iTunes. Go ahead and give it a rating. Give it a whatever positive thing or a negative thing. Let me know if I'm doing something wrong. Although I think I'm doing okay. Mekel seemed to really like my show. So if I can get the support of Hawaii's #1 podcast host of my show, I think I'm doing okay. I'm fine. Again, thank you guys so much for listening each and every week. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will check you guys next week with another new episode. See ya.